I wasn't born into anything fancy, but I'd been scraping by in the corporate world for almost 8 years. The awkwardness I'd had when I first started was gone. What was left was composure. When I came in, I caught an executive in the corner asking his companion, puzzled, "Whose young woman is that? I don't remember seeing her before." "Is that Vivian Shaw?" someone offered. The man with him snapped back, "Are you losing it? That's Serena Cole, Ethan Grant's former assistant. She just jumped to Shaw Group as a vice president." "Oh, I just saw Ethan bowing and scraping to her a moment ago." Shows you, never underestimate a poor kid. Once the guests were all there, the reception began. One of the bosses I'd worked with before recognized me and greeted me with a laugh. "Serena Cole? You've done well for yourself. You look even better now." I glanced over at Ethan Grant and made sure to speak loud enough for him to hear. "Of course, people do better when they move. Stay put and you wither. I've got a promotion and a raise. Of course I'm glowing." The boss laughed and clinked his glass with mine, then went on about his work with Shaw Group. I was in the center of a happy little orbit. Ethan, by contrast, was a ghost. The Grant family had put all their weight behind Adrian Grant, even handing the company to the newly graduated Adrian, so nobody could really read Richard Grant's attitude toward Ethan. At the party, no one went out of their way to talk to him. Watching Ethan be isolated, I smiled, took a glass from a passing server, and strolled over to him at my own unhurried pace. "Seeing Ethan so beaten down really puts me at ease," I said. Something in my tone pushed him. He ground his teeth and hissed, "Serena Cole, I never should have pulled you out of those loan sharks. You should have let them finish you," he spat. "Let you die by their hands, not have you repay kindness with treachery." I took a step back. The sarcasm in my eyes was impossible to hide, but my face wore a smile. "Which is it, Ethan? Did you save me? Or did you engineer debt I didn't owe so I'd slave for the Grant family, for you, for 7 years?" Panic flashed across his face, but he stuck to his denial. "What are you talking about? I saved you. You're lying, trying to frame me." I let out a cold laugh and pressed on. "I gave up my inheritance. I didn't have to keep paying the loans my father ran up when he was sick. So why did a group claiming to be debt collectors show up the year I graduated when I had nothing, harassing me, following me, beating me? And why did you happen to appear and buy me for $150,000, making me sell myself for 5 years?" He shrank under my questioning and fell silent in that corner of the ballroom. I curled my lips around my glass and smiled thinly. "Do you know why I went with Vivian Shaw? Vivian found out the truth the day after I started at Shaw Group. You were jealous. I'd gotten the recommendation you couldn't, so you hired a gang of punks to pretend to be collectors and harass me. They came to campus, they harassed the place where I worked part-time, made it impossible for me to study and work. You stepped in and made me sign that contract." I watched Ethan's guilty expression and let the smile linger. "All those years you were beside me, didn't you enjoy thinking I was dumb and easy to trap? Too bad I climbed higher. I climbed to a place where I can crush you with one hand." Ethan's face darkened. My smile deepened. "You don't like your Adrian, do you? Fine, I'll make you watch Adrian rise and make you nothing. A joke across New York City." I turned away, cup in hand, and walked back into the reception with a smile. Vanessa Hale of the Grants was an interesting character, openly leading her son around the room and chatting. I'd heard she'd been Richard Grant's personal secretary before Margaret Grant's family influence waned. She moved in fast and married into power. That last stretch of my time at Grant Holdings had been full of people like her. Blake Turner, who had once sneered that I wanted to be like Vanessa, an assistant who slept her way into the inner circle, saw me and didn't shy away. She took my hand and praised me. "Serena Cole really has it all, looks and ability." I thanked her and turned to talk with Adrian. Richard drifted over just as I said, "I didn't realize Ethan was into jewelry design." Vivian asked me to pass a message. She just bought a piece at an auction but didn't like the design. When she gets back from San Diego, she wants you to take a look. Do you have time? Before Adrian could answer, Richard hurried to reassure me, laughing too hard. Of course, whenever Vivian's back, we have time. Vanessa and I exchanged a look and a smile. Ethan heard it all. His eyes clouded. I didn't have to be by his side to know what was roiling through his head. He'd been living hard these last few years, and everyone with a foothold in New York City's old money circles knew his feats. 3 pregnancies in 6 months, as the rumor went. Big houses didn't line up to marry into him, and he looked down on lesser matches. Now the Grants had favored Adrian. If he attached himself to a house higher than the Grants, like Shaw Group, Ethan had no chance. He had to do something. I watched the flare of his ambition and allowed a private smile. Stirring internal conflict? Simple. When Vivian returned from Raven Creek, she did bring dirt about Millstone paper fraud and pollution. What they'd been hawking as $25 million recycled fiber turned out to be a pile of soggy wasteboard. The advanced paper-making machinery in their brochure was really filthy, imprecise equipment. Looking at the photos Vivian brought, I understood immediately. If a company called Millstone Paper collapses, it wouldn't matter much, except that it's under the Grant Holdings name. Exactly, Vivian said. Talking to someone smart makes my life easier. 2 weeks later, the media ran a story. A paper mill near Raven Creek had caused serious pollution that threatened residents' health. Smoke rose from its tall stacks, and the area around it felt abandoned. One plant's pollution wouldn't normally cause a fuss, but new environmental regulations had just come into effect, and Millstone suddenly became a public enemy. Authorities shut it down and issued fines, and investors started to worry. How could a mill that claimed to have cutting-edge pollution control get shut down for pollution? While Vivian staked her position, I contacted the press and began exposing Grant Holdings and Millstone Paper for accounting fraud and deceiving shareholders. Vivian also got Northbridge Environmental Lab to issue a report proving the mill's falsifications. Instantly, Millstone Paper's stock crashed. Of course, the Grant family heard. Millstone had been one of the first businesses Ethan helped procure. He tried to save it, but Adrian and Vanessa were circling. If he went to Raven Creek, he'd lose everything in New York City. When the stock hit bottom, Vivian closed her position and walked away, cashing out. She left Ethan with a massive mess. He couldn't be bothered to run the mill anymore and shut it down. He thought closing a mill was a small thing. If he could win back ground in New York City, it would all be nothing. We knew exactly what he was thinking. On the day the mill declared bankruptcy, gossip hawk Gavin Price announced he'd live-streamed an exposé and claimed he had proof about a New York City playboy and a B-list actress, Riley Quinn Love, pregnancy and abortion. The city detonated. Gavin had a reputation for accuracy. Once he published a scoop, it rarely missed. I knew Ethan wouldn't buy the story off him when I handed it to Gavin. Ethan wasn't a public figure. Any shame would fall on the actress. Riley assumed Ethan would protect her, but at Gavin's countdown, she realized Ethan wasn't interested in covering for her. Gavin wanted $30 million, but Riley had just bought a mansion and didn't have that kind of ready cash. Ethan didn't answer her calls. He played dead. Gavin did what he said he would. At 8 that night, he live-streamed. Ethan had slept with Riley. She tried to use the pregnancy to climb up, and Ethan had his assistant, me, take Riley to have the abortion. He even posted photos, me in a mask, and Riley pale in a hospital gown, being helped by me. The public devoured it. Fans got the receipts. Bystanders feasted on the scandal. Riley's image collapsed. More dirt came out, being disrespectful to seniors, pushing down juniors, rolling her eyes at fans. Brands dropped her. Shows she was slated to appear in were canceled. Ethan, though, came out almost unscathed. That was not what we intended. Then Riverside Galleria project, the mall Grant Holdings had been hosting, was exposed for major fire safety issues. Someone released the project's blueprints, and it was clear the design was engineered to cut corners, structures liable to collapse over time. Brands that planned to move in pulled out, and publicly demanded the Grants explain themselves. I knew this was part of Ethan's purview. I'd heard it stemmed from an internal scramble within the Grants branch, where several talented people had been pushed out and later hired by Clark Capital. The project halted. Losses mounted daily and immeasurably. Because it was a safety issue, Richard Grant flew into a rage and stripped Ethan of power. Coupled with the scandal involving Riley, Ethan suddenly had no allies willing to marry into his line. His chances of a comeback evaporated. If Ethan's downfall had stopped there, being ousted from the Grant family, I might have considered it closed. But my boss was Vivian. And with Vivian, nothing was ever small. Vivian was a born dealmaker. Her sights on the grants weren't limited to a single mill. She wanted the whole family. My role was to work with her and finish them.